I always thought my marriage was perfect. My husband, Jonathan, loved me deeply. So when he told me with red eyes that he had a physical problem and could not give me the happiness I deserved as a woman, I only felt heartache for him. Until recently, I frequently had nosebleeds. I fainted and was taken to the hospital by passers-by while I was receiving a blood transfusion. I heard a young nurse whisper, "This woman really shouldn't just keep giving. Look, her bone marrow is almost completely drained, and the man outside still won't give up." I can't stop shaking. Bone marrow extraction. I suddenly remember, after the monthly general anesthetic medical examination, I always feel particularly tired. It turns out that it was all Jonathan under the banner of love. Little by little, he drained my health. I want to stand up and ask him what's going on, but I inadvertently saw the message he just sent on his mobile phone by the bed. Her bone marrow has almost been completely extracted, but fortunately Emily's leukemia is almost cured. She should give Emily her place. After all, the child in Emily's womb needs a name. I looked at these words. My heart trembled. Emily, isn't she his cousin? The love he showed me. Was it just to use me? It turns out that he is not incapable, but to keep himself pure for his cousin. He said he didn't like children. In fact, he just didn't like my child. As I cried and cried, I suddenly laughed. I felt that this farce should end. Just then, my phone popped up with a new message. In addition, Madam has been having increasingly frequent bone marrow extractions over the past 6 months. The volume has also increased. Now she has no new bone marrow to extract. Jonathan, I would like to remind you, if this continues, Madam's health will continue to decline. In severe cases, it may be life-threatening. Recently, Madam has been taking a lot of supplements. As a result, she has had nosebleeds. She is weak. It seems that she can no longer donate bone marrow to Miss Emily. I stare at the constantly flashing screen. I ponder, what would Jonathan say if he saw this in his eyes? I am probably useless, because I can no longer provide bone marrow for his beloved cousin. I hear footsteps outside the door. I close my eyes. I lie back on the bed, but tears still flow from my tightly shut eyes. It turns out the person I loved for so many years had always only seen me as a means to extend his cousin's life. While I was imagining growing old with him and spending the rest of my life with him, he was plotting how to drain me of all my blood and train me to be his blood bag, while I looked at other people's children and secretly felt sad. He was with his cousin and got her pregnant. Jonathan, I thought you only owed me a child. I was willing to accept it all because I loved you. Now I understand. I thought our love for each other was rushing towards us, but it was actually a lie that drained my life. Just before the ward door opened, I dried my tears. Jonathan walked in. After seeing the unread message on his phone, he silently put it back in his pocket. Sarah, how do you feel? The nurse said you just woke up. I hurried over. Jonathan held my hand with a worried face. I almost thought he was still the good husband who loved me dearly. I gently pulled back my hand. Calmly said, feeling much better. Jonathan heard this and visibly relaxed a lot. He pulled me into his arms. We sat up. He said, I bought your favorite date cake especially for you. I had someone go in line early this morning to buy it. Don't be afraid. I just asked the doctor. The doctor said it may be due to the recent change of season. The weather is too dry. That's why you have nosebleeds. It's nothing serious, you're just weak. When we get home, I'll ask the doctor to adjust your vitamin intake. The vitamins he gives me only have one effect. They promote the growth of my bone marrow. No wonder after every so-called medical examination, he says I need to take vitamins. It turns out that he wants me to become a qualified blood donor. As I listen to his sweet words, I feel nothing but disgust. It's okay. I know. Every time I go for a medical checkup, the doctor says I have a weak constitution. Just take more supplements and you'll be fine. Jonathan listened. He smiled and kissed my forehead. He said, I knew Sarah was the most considerate. She didn't want me to worry. Sarah, why are your eyes red? Did you cry? I rubbed my eyes. No, I must have just woken up. The sunlight is a bit blinding. As long as you're fine, that's all that matters. Here, have some congee. I'll feed you. Jonathan took out another bowl of delicately packaged congee. He brought it to my lips himself. He was still so considerate and thoughtful towards me. For a moment, I almost forgot. A moment ago, he had told someone else about how I had to give way to his cousin. Seeing that I hadn't opened my mouth for a long time, Jonathan frowned. Still speaking in a soft voice, he said, Sarah, you're not being obedient again. If you don't eat, how can your body get better? I'm going to die of worry. I shook my head and said I want to sleep a little more. Jonathan tenderly stroked my head. He said gently, "Okay, rest well. If you want anything, just ask the assistant to go buy it for you. I still have some work to do at the office. I have to hurry." After making sure that Jonathan had left, I went to see the doctor. I asked about my condition. The doctor looked at me with a serious face. I don't even remember how I left the doctor's office. Unexpectedly, Jonathan, who had said he was going to work, was actually in the hospital corridor. He was holding someone carefully in his arms. It was his cousin, Emily. He whispered to Emily, "Emily, how could I bear to see you suffer? I'd rather it was me who was sick. Don't worry. I'll take care of you and the baby. Not only will I take care of you, I'll marry you in style. Sister-in-law, she's not worthy to be your sister-in-law. You are the only wife in my heart. She should not stay in the Smith family for long." Although I have long understood that he regards me as a source of bone marrow, Jonathan's words still pierce my heart like a knife. I subconsciously touched my stomach. The doctor just told me I'm pregnant. I said to myself, "My child, you have come at the wrong time. I'm sorry. My child. Doctor, I want an abortion." In the ward, the smell of disinfectant was pungent. It made me feel dizzy. I stared blankly at the ceiling. The doctor's words still echoed in my ears. "In your case, the possibility of getting pregnant in the future is very small. You have often drawn bone marrow frequently. The foundation of your body has been seriously damaged. It is already a miracle that you can get pregnant after this operation. The chance of getting pregnant in the future is very small. Your own body is the most important. You must take care of yourself before helping others." That doctor's words were probably the only words of genuine concern I had heard in years. But the person who hurt me was the one who used the knife, and I was the one who handed it to him. All of this was because of Jonathan. I had loved him so much. I had trusted him so much. But in the end, he had become the one who hurt me. I lay in bed staring at the pale ceiling. My tears flowed unstoppably. "Jonathan, I really hate you. I hate you. And I hate myself for having loved you." At that moment, I hear footsteps at the door. It's Jonathan. He gently tucks the corners of the quilt around me. His voice is soft. "Sarah, I've just read your test results. The doctor says there's nothing serious. You're just a little weak. Why are you crying? I told you everything was fine. You didn't believe me." Jonathan's tone is tinged with impatience that he doesn't even notice. Whenever I had doubts about my health in the past, he always asked me the same thing. But my trust has cost me my child. It has cost me the chance to be a mother. "It's okay," I reply calmly. Maybe he can tell that something is wrong with me. Jonathan's tone softens a little. He says, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." And then he leans down to kiss my forehead. But then the phone suddenly rings. Emily's name is clearly displayed on the screen. He frowned. He said, "Something's come up at work. I have to take this." Although it sounded like he wasn't happy about the call, he answered it quickly. His tone was unusually gentle. "What is it?" The voice on the other end of the line was soft and weak. It sounded a little aggrieved. "Cousin, I woke up and found you weren't here. I was all alone in the room. It's so big. It's so dark. I'm a little scared. And there's the baby inside me." Jonathan walked quickly out of the hospital room. When he returned, he looked at me apologetically. "Sarah, the company's latest project is urgent. I have to go back there again. You're alone. You go. I'm fine on my own." I interrupted him directly. As soon as Jonathan had left, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It read "Mother-in-law" in big letters. It kept flashing. I took a deep breath. Then I picked up the phone. "You finally answered the phone," Jonathan's mother said loudly in the empty hospital room. Her voice sounded especially harsh. "You've been married into our family for so many years, and you still don't have any children. You've really let my son down. If you can't have children, you should make way for someone else. Someone has to carry on my son's business." I couldn't remember how many times I'd heard those words. Jonathan had told me before that he couldn't have children, but he asked me to keep the secret for his sake. I agreed. Since then, everyone in the Smith family thinks that I am the one who cannot bear children. But there is no such thing as someone who cannot bear children. There is only someone who doesn't want to bear children. I clutched the bed sheet tightly. My fingernails almost dug into the palm of my hand. "Our family's Jonathan is so outstanding. How come you are such a loser? What bad luck. Maybe it's because I was cold today." I didn't apologize with a smile. My mother-in-law's words became more and more insulting. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "It wasn't me who couldn't bear children. It was." As soon as my mother-in-law heard this, she became angry immediately. "What do you mean by that? Are you saying that my son is impotent? He's a big man. How could there be a problem? It must be you who has a problem. Don't think I don't know. Have you done something bad in the past? You've ruined your body. Facing all these unstoppable words, I just smiled coldly. Mom, I was pregnant with Jonathan's child, but I just aborted it today. If you don't believe me, come to the hospital and have a look. Early the next morning, I was woken up by my mother-in-law's phone call. This is really too much. You're not home in the morning. Where have you been? You're not staying out all night, are you? Oh dear. What did the Smith family do wrong to let someone like you into the family? I was annoyed by my mother-in-law's sniveling and scolding. I really wanted to go back in time. I want to slap myself for smiling at that evil mother-in-law. I want to wake her up. Stop crying in the morning. I already told you I was at the hospital. I've aborted your precious grandson. I coldly interrupted her next words. There was suddenly silence on the other end of the line. I don't know if it was because of my sudden change in attitude that she was stunned, or because what I said was so shocking. Then, a shrill scream pierced the silence. Ah, I'm going to make Jonathan divorce you, me. That's great, just what I wanted. By the way, I'll tell you something else. It's not my problem that I haven't got pregnant after all these years. Your son told me himself. He's impotent. There was an immediate response from the other end. What are you talking about? There's no way my son could be impotent. It must be you. You're a woman with a jinx, a bad omen. I hung up immediately. I didn't want to say another word to anyone from the Smith family. It's a waste of my feelings. But things are never as good as they seem. The next second, Jonathan came in. I hadn't seen him yet, but the strong jasmine fragrance had already drifted over. I frowned in disgust and turned my back to him. Jonathan placed the plain congee on the bedside table and looked at me tenderly and said, Sarah, the doctor said you're weak. You need to eat more to build up your strength. I turned my head and glanced at him. I saw that his shirt buttons were unbuttoned. A distinct red mark was visible underneath, the faint red marks on his body from the jasmine-scented perfume. Heh, this has become commonplace in the 5 years I've been with him. Every time, he would use some lame excuse to get away with it, like some kind of polite hug between colleagues at work, an accidental brush with the perfume, or a little bit of it from socializing. Later on, he didn't even bother to make up excuses. He just gave me a dark look with impatience. He said I didn't understand him. He said he was exhausted from trying to make a good life for me and support me. And here I was, thinking all kinds of nonsense, suspecting him of doing all kinds of things. When I think about it, I can't help but smile wryly and shake my head. How could I have been so stupid all these years? So heartbreakingly stupid. I was really stupid. I was blinded by so-called love. I almost lost my life. I couldn't even protect my own child. Jonathan seemed to sense that something was wrong with me. He coughed lightly. He pulled his collar up. Pretending to be fine, he picked up the porridge and said, Let's eat something first. You're too weak. At that moment, his phone suddenly vibrated. He glanced down at the screen. He pressed the answer button. What mom has fainted? His expression suddenly changed. He looked nervous. He immediately stood up. He turned to me and said, Sarah, this time it really is an emergency. I have to go take care of it. I smiled. My tone was calm. Which time was a fake. Jonathan was speechless for a moment. It seemed that he sensed that something was wrong with me, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He had to leave awkwardly. Half an hour later, my mother-in-law arrived in a wheelchair. The rest of the Smith family was with her. Jonathan, who was walking in front of them, looked gloomy. He walked quickly up to me. His eyes were full of mixed emotions. He spoke in a low voice. Sarah, how could you be so willful? I looked up at him. I smiled gently. I said, willful. I tilted my head slightly. My gaze fell on the faint kiss mark on his neck. Jonathan was surprised that I didn't admit my fault as usual. He looked a little surprised. I said, Cousin, I don't think Sarah meant to do it on purpose. There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Jonathan's cousin Emily walked out. She smelled of the same jasmine perfume as Jonathan. I glanced at her slender waist. I ignored her. My mother-in-law couldn't hold back any longer. She pointed at me with trembling fingers. She said with clenched teeth, What misunderstanding is there? Sarah, she actually aborted the Smith family's child. You heartless woman. You must give me an explanation today. All eyes were suddenly focused on me. Jonathan's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. Sarah, how could you possibly be pregnant? I looked up, looked at him, and slowly smiled. Who would have thought that I would be so weak and still be able to conceive your child? But don't worry, the child has already been disposed of. Jonathan was shocked by my words. He was at a loss for words. Unconsciously, he looked at his cousin Emily. He stuttered and asked, How did you know?" I smiled. I didn't intend to respond to him and continued. "By the way, get divorced. I wish you and your good sister an early, happy ending." Jonathan was stunned. His face was full of surprise. He stuttered. "Sarah, how did you know all that?" he finished. I didn't look at him again. Instead, I looked around the hospital room at the various expressions on the faces of the Smith family members. In their eyes, I had always been the easygoing, good-natured one of the Smith family, but today, I had even gone so far as to propose divorce after an abortion. That had taken them by surprise. Jonathan tried hard to hide the panic in his eyes. He obviously hadn't expected me to know about his bone marrow donation and about his relationship with Emily. My mother-in-law's face turned livid when I mentioned abortion again, and her face turned pale with anger. She stared at me with wide eyes. Then she started shouting, "You damned woman, give me back my grandson. Why did you have to abort our Smith family's child?" I looked at the people in the room. I gave a small smile. My words were directed at my mother-in-law, but my gaze fell on Jonathan. "Jonathan, don't you already have a son? Why didn't you tell your mother about such an important matter? Make her happy." As soon as the words left my mouth, the room fell eerily silent again. His mother-in-law stared at Jonathan excitedly. Her voice trembled. "My son, is what she said true? You're a father. I have a grandson. Where is he? Take me to see him." Jonathan pursed his lips lightly. He glanced at Emily. Without saying a word, his mother-in-law was both happy and excited. She kept pressing him. "My boy, why don't you say something? It's fine. It doesn't matter if it's not Sarah's. She can't have children. She has no right to say that. How old is the baby? Bring it back so I can see it. My health is failing. I can't help you with the baby. Let Sarah take care of it." Under his mother-in-law's barrage of questions, Jonathan remained silent. I gave a cold smile. "What, you didn't know Emily was pregnant? This is a happy event for your close-knit Smith family." Everyone in the room suddenly looked up. Only Jonathan stared at me, with an indescribable pain in his eyes. He scratched his hair and said, "Sarah, why are you doing this?" The one who reacted the most strongly was my mother-in-law. She was originally sitting in a wheelchair, but now she had stood up and walked quickly to Emily. She tightly grasped her hand and asked excitedly, "Emily, you're pregnant. You're pregnant with our Smith family's child. Is this true? Why didn't you say anything sooner?" Jonathan frowned. It seemed that he hadn't expected things to develop to this point. The others' faces all showed signs of joy after seeing their mother-in-law's reaction. Seeing their expressions, I felt disgusted. I regretted even more that I hadn't recognized the true colors of these people sooner. "Sarah, I'm here. Can you get out of bed? I've already arranged the transfer." I glanced at the pop-up message on my phone. It was from my best friend Jessica. I asked her to come and pick me up last night. I looked around the ward. Everyone was gathered around Emily, who was blushing. They were asking her about the details of her pregnancy. I forced myself to ignore the discomfort in my body. I slowly walked out of the ward. The moment I saw Jessica, I couldn't hold back any longer. Tears flowed unstoppably down my face. "Don't worry. I already knew that Jonathan was no good. How dare he bully my Sarah? Sooner or later, he will get his comeuppance." Seeing Jessica stand up for me like that, I suddenly felt that there were still many people in this world that I cared about and loved. Before leaving the hospital, I had one more thing to take care of. I looked at the nurse at the nurse's station. Trying hard to control the sadness in my heart, I said, "Hello, I would like to check the previous bone marrow donation records." The nurse glanced at me. Smiling politely, she asked, "May I ask who you are?" "I am the donor." The nurse nodded. She looked up the relevant records. After taking a look, she said with doubt, "Your previous bone marrow was not donated to Emily." I listened. My eyes slightly tightened. Then who did I give my bone marrow to? But the most important thing now was that I had to leave this hospital immediately. Jessica helped me into the car. Next to the seat was a bouquet of pink tulips. They were my favorite flowers. "Jessica," my voice was a little choked up. She waved her hand, smiling and saying, "Leave those unreliable men, and I spoil you." The other side, Jonathan suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He turned around and found the hospital bed empty. He hurriedly pushed his way through the crowd and rushed out. In the face of his cousin Emily's inquiries, he simply mumbled a few words in response. He ran as hard as he could, just in time to see Sarah's back as she got into the car. He chased after the speeding car and shouted Sarah's name, but there was never any response. Jonathan stood dumbfounded by the roadside. His whole body seemed to have lost its soul. He couldn't understand how things had turned out like this. He kept asking himself in his heart, Sarah, will she come back? Jonathan returned home. As soon as he opened the door, he understood. Half an hour ago, Jessica had already brought me back to pack up all my things. She was worried that I would be reluctant to leave when I saw Jonathan again. I just smiled. Without saying a word, only I knew for sure. My heart had been broken into pieces. My 5-year marriage to him, in the end, one died and one was injured. I lost my child. My body also collapsed. In the end, Jonathan even lost his conscience. What else is there for me to cherish? It didn't take long. My phone vibrated continuously. It was a message from Jonathan. Sarah, where have you been? Hurry back. You're old enough to stop disappearing. If you keep acting like this, it won't do you any good. You just made my mom really mad. And now this. We need to talk face to face. What you're doing is really inappropriate, if my mom asks. I don't know how I'll explain it to her. I looked at the series of messages he had sent and smiled coldly. He probably thinks that even if I find out about him and his cousin Emily, and even if I find out that he doesn't care about my life, I'll still go back to being a good wife. Forget it. I quickly signed the divorce agreement. Then I called the courier to send the documents. Next, I sent him a message. I've signed the divorce agreement. Send it back to me after you've signed it. After that, I turned off my phone. I wouldn't look at it again. Jessica was right. What I needed most now was rest. I won't waste any more energy on those unworthy people. They don't deserve it. But I had just fallen asleep when I was woken up by another ringtone. I picked up the phone in a daze. I heard my mother-in-law's voice on the other end. Sarah, you've got some nerve. It's so late. Why aren't you back home cooking dinner yet? What if my grandson is hungry? You don't have any children yourself. So you're jealous that Emily is pregnant with Jonathan's baby. You deliberately want to starve Emily, don't you? When my mother-in-law answered the phone, she spoke like a machine gun. She just kept talking. Finally, she paused to catch her breath. I quickly interrupted. Your son and I have divorced. You dare to divorce my son? You're really out of line. My son spent so much money to marry you. How dare you mention divorce? You hurry back and take care of Emily. I won't let you divorce. HMPH, I said coldly. I have to get a divorce. But my mother-in-law's words suddenly made me realize. I understand that things are more complicated than I thought. Sure enough, I just hung up the phone. My mother-in-law called back, and so did Jonathan's text message. He said, divorce, I don't agree. Let's talk. Where are you? I want to see you. Are you with Jessica? I know where her house is. I'll come to you. I see Jessica is still helping me tidy up my bedroom. I realize I can't let her get involved in this mess. Jessica, I have to go back to the Smith family. Jessica jumps to her feet as soon as she hears this. She says, are you crazy? Why would you go back there? I helplessly show her the text message. I'm trying to keep our secret base a secret. Jessica nods. But I'm not going to let you go alone. Let my brother drive you. He can help if anything happens. Michael is Jessica's brother. I have had dinner with him a few times. I remember that he doesn't say much, but he is very attentive. At that time, Jessica even joked about letting him be her brother-in-law. Just now, I was standing in front of the Smith family's door. I heard my mother-in-law say loudly, my dear Emily, tomorrow I will take you to the hospital for a checkup to see if it is a boy or a girl. I guess it must be a boy. Emily's tone was a bit unnatural. Emily, are you free tomorrow? Her mother-in-law turned to look at her. Her face was full of expectation. Emily froze for a moment. Her expression was a little unnatural. Then she forced a smile and said, Auntie, I've been a little tired lately. The doctor advised me to rest first. I'll go for the checkup when my body stabilizes. When her mother-in-law heard Emily say she was tired, she immediately pointed the finger at me. Humph, it must be Sarah who has caused trouble lately, making you suffer as well. Jonathan, let me tell you, this kind of woman, you need to keep a tighter rein on her. Sorry, this kind of woman. I don't need you to worry about me. I pushed open the door and walked in. Jonathan saw me. His eyes lit up. Sarah, you're back. When Jonathan saw me walk in the door, he couldn't help but come towards me, his eyes full of concern, but I felt a wave of discomfort. Sarah, why did you suddenly get discharged from the hospital? The doctor said you still need to rest more. I said coldly. Did the doctor tell you? Extracting bone marrow requires the consent of the person involved. Emily walked over. One hand held me. The other was on Jonathan's arm. She whispered, Sister Sarah, don't blame Brother Jonathan. It's all because of me. I caused you two to fall out. I quickly pulled my hand back. I silently sized her up. She was on the thin side, but she looked healthy. Her complexion was good. Her hand was warm. She doesn't look like she has leukemia and is going to die soon. And looking at her flat stomach and her high heels, she doesn't look like she's pregnant. For this woman who almost got me killed, I remain calm and keep my distance. Emily didn't expect me to completely ignore her. Embarrassed, she hid behind Jonathan. I only came here to ask you to sign the divorce papers. I looked at Jonathan. I put the divorce papers on the table. I signed them. I don't want anything. I'm just leaving. Jonathan opened his mouth. His eyes were full of pain and reluctance. The mother-in-law standing next to him stood up. She picked up the divorce agreement and flipped through it. You want a divorce? No way. Did the Smith family marry you in to be a little lady? It's fine if you don't have any children. Emily is pregnant. Not only do you not take care of her, you also want to take my son's wealth through divorce. Don't even think about it. Michael couldn't stand by any longer. He stood up and said, your son cheated on you during the marriage. He also got another woman pregnant. He should compensate Sarah for this divorce. Sarah doesn't care. She chose to leave the house with nothing. That's already very generous. I advise you to stop. Michael usually works out a lot. He is tall. He spoke angrily just now. His mother-in-law was so scared that she couldn't move from the sofa. But she coughed a few times anyway. She tugged Jonathan's sleeve. She said, Jonathan, Emily is pregnant with your child and she has moved in. Someone like Sarah should have left the Smith family a long time ago. This second-hand stuff, anyone who wants it can have it. You've already used it anyway. You and Emily, and my dear grandson, are the ones I care about. As she spoke, Grandma's tone became firm again. Jonathan's hand was being shaken. The man was shaking it anxiously. Jonathan, sign the papers quickly. I've already read them. She's getting the bare minimum. Not even a single Smith family chopstick will she be able to take with her. Jonathan's gaze locked onto Michael's. His voice was low. Sarah, is this the man you decided to divorce me for? I laughed angrily. Jonathan, I'm divorcing you because you're so awful. If there is anything to do with someone else, it is through them. I can see even more clearly how disgusting you are. Jonathan clenched his lips. His eyes were full of anger. At this moment, Emily stepped forward. She said softly, Jonathan, brother, you scare me like this. If Sister Sarah wants to stay, then I will just go. There was a hint of a sob in her voice. Jonathan looked down at the tearful woman in his arms. His eyes were full of pity. He gave me one last look and signed the papers. I was finally free. I never thought. A few days later, I was looking at information about studying abroad when I suddenly received a text message from Jonathan. Sarah, I really miss you. I feel incomplete without you. Only when I'm with you do I feel the warmth of home. Sarah, can you come back to me? I realized that I had made a mistake. Jonathan had probably drunk too much. The text message was full of typos. I struggled to understand what he had written. Then I silently switched my phone to silent mode. Nothing can stop me from pursuing my dreams. This divorce is a fresh start for me. Before marrying Jonathan, my dream was to become a jewelry designer. However, that year, between Jonathan's marriage proposal and the coveted school admission letter, I chose the former. After all that has happened, I still had the courage to start again. Paris, here I come. But who would have thought that on the way to the visa office I would run into Jonathan? It had only been half a month since I had last seen him. Jonathan had changed so much that I almost didn't recognize him. His face was full of stubble. His suit was missing a button. The cuffs and collar of his white shirt were yellowed. There were obvious stains on his tie. This time we met because he had driven into the car I was in. Michael was the first to get out of the car after seeing someone rear-end him. Looking at his tall back, I felt inexplicably safe. Although Jessica was still joking around, saying that I should be her sister-in-law, I now seemed to have less interest in matters between men and women. Obviously, Michael didn't recognize the person on the other side as my ex-husband. He was still politely chatting with Jonathan, but Jonathan recognized him at once. His face immediately changed. He rushed towards the car. He pounded on the car window. Sarah, Sarah, are you there? Michael realized the emaciated man in front of him was actually Jonathan, who had been full of energy half a month ago. What do you want? Michael pushed Jonathan away with the ease of lifting a chicken. I saw more and more people gathering around, so I got out of the car. It's okay. I smiled at Michael to express my gratitude. Let me talk to him. Thank you. Michael looked at me with a determined expression. He didn't say anything more. He just told me, I'll wait for you in the car. When we arrived at the coffee shop, Jonathan began to pour out his heart to me about how much he missed me, but I didn't understand until he finished. He was actually just not used to having someone like me around who would take care of him in every possible way. In Jonathan's description, Emily was a very self-willed young lady. She never did any housework. She just spent money. She maxed out 5 credit cards in 1 week. What's more, she often came home smelling of alcohol, and she didn't come home at night. I listened quietly to him describe the disappointments in his life. And suddenly, I felt a sense of relief, because at least I still had the opportunity to choose a new life. Sarah, I was wrong. I really know that I was wrong. After you left, I realized just how dependent I was on you. When I first asked you to donate bone marrow, I really just wanted to save someone's life. I never thought it would cause such harm to your body. Emily told me that there would be no problem with the bone marrow extraction. She hopes that I can forgive her. She also mentioned that her pregnancy was also an accident. That night, there was a party at her house. I got drunk. I stayed at her house. As a result, she got pregnant. Sarah, you are all I have in my heart. Now I just want to make it up to you. Can you give me this opportunity? Jonathan kept asking, and pulled me back to reality. I looked at the once suave man in front of me, now with tears in his eyes, and felt a little ridiculous. Perhaps this is what makes the wretched so hateful. Jonathan, we can never be together again. I stood up, calmly looked at him, and said softly, No, Sarah, don't do this. I put 100 yuan on the table, and said, This coffee is on me, by the way. I suggest you check it out. Emily doesn't seem to have leukemia at all. 2 days before I left for Paris, I received another text message from Jonathan. Jessica stared at the long paragraph on the screen and asked me, Sarah, you won't soften your heart. Then my brother will be sad. I patted her head lightly and said with a smile, How could it be? But there is no way, between your brother and me, that there could be anything. How could I not understand Michael's feelings? But right now, I just want to live for myself. Michael, he deserves a better woman. Jessica sighed. It seemed like she wanted to say something, but in the end it turned into criticism of Jonathan. HMPH, if you keep hanging out with guys like Jonathan, I'm not going to play with you anymore. You're going to lose your best girlfriend. He treated you like that before, and now that he's found out he's been played, he's running back to you to get back together. Does he think you'll wait for him to come back at any time? I laughed. Maybe that's just the kind of person he is. He's used to being on top, thinking the whole world revolves around him, that everything has to be about his feelings. So, he thinks draining my marrow is no big deal. And he thinks Emily will be like me, willing to become a full-time nanny. But the world is never that simple. Sooner or later, he'll have to taste the bitter fruit of his own actions. I lowered my head and opened the text message he'd sent me. Sarah, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Emily wasn't sick and she wasn't pregnant. She had a boyfriend. He worked in the finance department at my company. They conspired to empty my company of all its assets. They lied to me the whole time. I never thought she would do that. Sarah, I really regret it now. You're the only one I have left now. Please come back. Okay, don't worry about my mother. When she found out what Emily had done, died of shock. Her funeral is tomorrow. Would you like to come back and see her off? Of course, I didn't want it to end like this, but I was overwhelmed by the drama of it all. But I knew I wouldn't go back because tomorrow I was leaving for Paris. 2 days later, I was standing at the airport, carrying only a lightweight carry-on suitcase. I've never felt more relaxed. I'm finally going to Paris. Before boarding the plane, I take one last look at my phone. Jonathan has called me 99 times. He's sent me 101 messages. I haven't answered or replied. I gently close my eyes. Tears fall without my realizing it. Goodbye, Jonathan. Goodbye, the love that once trapped me. 3 years later, I celebrated my graduation at the Louvre Jewelry Show in Paris. I wore a well-fitting dress. On my wrist was the latest piece of jewelry I had designed, standing confidently in the center of the exhibition hall. After 3 years of hard work, I had not only completed my postgraduate studies, I had also made a name for myself in the industry. Today was not only my graduation exhibition, it was also the day I opened my own studio. I stood under the crystal chandelier, holding a glass of champagne, looking at everything in front of me. It feels so good that I can't quite believe it. But I know, I've earned it. Miss Sarah, congratulations on being this year's outstanding graduate. A member of the industry chuckles as he congratulates me. I smile and nod. I respond politely. I catch a glimpse of Jessica not far away, holding her phone. I look at her with a slightly complicated expression. I walk over to her. Jessica is holding her phone. She looks a little nervous. I ask her softly, laughing, "What's wrong?" Jessica hesitated for a moment, whispering, "Jonathan is dead." I didn't react at first. I had an indescribable feeling in my heart, this name. It was both familiar and strange to me. I had thought I would never have any contact with him again in this life, but I never expected to hear his name again, and it was the news of his death. Jessica told me. His company went bankrupt, Jonathan. He jumped off a building when she said this. Jessica kept watching my expression, seeing that I didn't react. She let out a sigh of relief. Then she said, "Sarah, today is an important day for you. I gently patted her hand. Smiling, I said, "I'm fine. Every day. Many people leave this world. It's just that this time it happened to be someone I knew." After saying that, I turned and walked towards my exhibition area. My back was straight. My steps were steady. I never looked back.